welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Welcome to Greg Digneo, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about SEO. For those who don't know what SEO is, it means search engine optimization. What does search engine optimization mean? Well, search engine optimization is making sure that your content is ranked as highly as possible on Google so that you can be found when people go Googling for key terms, phrases, or words. And Greg is a master at this, and was also the founder of Content Guppy. And Content Guppy is a digital agency that focuses on building great SEO, organic, finding yourself organically on Google through content. So that's his main focus. So welcome to the show, Greg.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So Greg has both been a failed marketing agency, or had one, and a successful marketing agency, and also worked in a pretty fun firm called Time Doctor with Liam Martin, who we recorded actually about 6 months ago. Great guy, great company about managing remote workers. And Greg worked for them for about 5 years. So tell us about the different agencies, the failed marketing agency, Greg. How did that happen? Or didn't happen?
Okay, so what didn't so back in 2008, I decided I wanted to work for myself. It was like in the middle of the economic crisis, and like the housing market collapse and everything. And so I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I started to study copywriting. I'm going to get to the story to the real heart of this in a second. So I started to study copywriting and started picking up a couple gigs. One gig became 2, became 4. And then what happened is somebody said, hey, do you want to do a website? And I said, of course. And then, do you want to do email marketing? I said, of course. And then the next thing you know, fast forward like 4 or 5 years, like you have an entire, I'm going to use the word company loosely, but it was really me with like a bunch of freelancers, and it was just total burnout for a long time. And the worst part about it is we were making sales, but cash flow was kind of poor, and it wasn't a liquidable asset of any sort whatsoever because it was built around me. And that's why it failed. It was like a very terrible job. There were no systems put in place or anything like that because I didn't mean to set out to start an agency. I had no idea what I wanted to do at the time, but so I didn't have that forward thinking to be like, okay, we're going to put these systems in place. We're going to do this and only this. We're going to focus. And there was none of that. And so lo and behold, it just got totally out of control and burned me out. So yeah, that's why it failed.
Okay, so it's the importance of building processes, I suppose, that you can scale you, because you were essentially
Exactly.
trading time for money, and all it was you with a little bit of help.
Yeah, it was trading a lot of time for not enough money, to be honest with you. And then on top of that, it was, where's my next client going to come from? Am I going to make rent? Am I going to make the mortgage this month and all that stuff, and all those stresses of just not having any of that in place. So, yes.
So you exited stage left and moved on to, where was it, Time Doctor? Is that the
I
next?
moved right in. Time Doctor was a client of mine, and after working with them for 6 months, as you said, I worked with Liam for 6 months to a year. I forgot the exact amount of time, but loved working with those guys, and said, hey, do you guys want me to come on board full time? And they said yes, and that was the end of that. Shut down the agency for the most part. Finished up a couple clients, and then moved on to Time Doctor full time.
And you would have been working remotely, is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That organization was, I mean, when I left, it was, let's say 150 employees and no office anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
everybody was remote.
Yeah. And Liam, who I interviewed 6 months ago, runs the Time Doctor. The Time Doctor is basically a software as a service tool that allows people to measure and manage their employees' productivity and manage them.
Yep.
And I think last time I spoke to him, I think you left maybe a couple of months before I spoke to him, I think he had 175 staff.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
lost
then
track after.
yeah, but growing rapidly because
Yeah.
obviously uh, we need tools to both collaborate as well as to manage remote work. And as we know, remote work has just gone off the charts in the last 18 months.
Yeah, it's bittersweet. Because we struggled with this internally for a little while. Like, how do we quote unquote celebrate our success when the rest of the world is kind of in a lot of pain, right? So
Mm,
there was always that inner turmoil for quite a few months,
yeah,
especially in the beginning of COVID.
yeah. Yeah, it's there's opportunities
Right.
in a crisis, and
Yep.
it's like the hospitality industry, air industry,
Exactly.
yeah, suffered terribly, and they're still suffering terribly.
The hospitality and then tourism all over the country, and then like how many people just ran like just who were laid off because of quote unquote uncertainty, and then it was like here we are growing. We were growing so fast that we couldn't keep up.
Mm,
Like we were breaking at the seams. So,
right.
and it was just kind of one of those things where we felt bad about it, but we kind of like, I don't know if justified is the right word, but we kind of came to this realization like, hey, we're also hiring as well. So yes, we aren't like, we're not hoarding cash. Like, at one point in time, I was managing 4 or 5 freelancers who I couldn't have been able to manage if things weren't in that way, if we weren't growing that fast. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so yeah.
What was your main role? What was your main task there, and what did you learn at Time Doctor
So my main,
as your SEO specialist? I suppose you were.
Yeah, so my main role was SEO content marketing and growing the Time Doctor blog, and we grew it. So when I started there, it was getting around, I think it was like 30,000 visitors a month, and then when I left in February, it was around 400,000 visitors a month. So we were able to 10x it in 5 years in a fairly competitive space,
Mm,
and so I actually learned two things really. One, SEO is not that difficult to learn, but number two, SEO is a grind. It is incredibly hard work every day,
mm,
and so those were the two biggest things that I was able to learn. If and if you do these three things, I always tell people, if you do three things well, you find keywords that have search volume, you rate good content, and you build links, you do that day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, you're going to go from 25,000 visitors to 400,000 visitors as well. It's inevitable.
mm. Yeah, yeah. It's optimizing your website or blog for search engines is a long game.
It is a long game. Yeah, you could see traction in a couple months, but um, but to get to, I would say move the needle, kind of sell the company and, head over to the Maldives kind of traffic, it's going to take a couple years.
Mm. So, what were the steps that you followed to grow the traffic?
So the first thing is like laying out a strategy, and I'm going to get into this specifically so that way it's not fluff. But the first thing is to lay out a strategy, and you want to kind of break your content up into what's called top of funnel content and bottom of the funnel content. Bottom of funnel content is like, I need a time tracking tool right now, or I need whatever product or service it is that you need right now, and somebody's gonna Google or search for something, and it's going to indicate to me as a content creator that they need our product or service. And I'll give you an example. If somebody is searching for toggle alternatives because Toggle is a competitor to Time Doctor, I know that they're looking for a time tracking solution, right?
Mm,
Same thing for if somebody's Googling HubStaff or HubSpot, who I think everybody in your audience would probably know,
mm-hmm.
a HubSpot alternative, right? You know that they need a marketing automation software. So those types of products and those types of content are very good at converting. Like we would create those. We created um, tons of that type of content on the Time Doctor blog. They don't get a ton of search traffic, but they convert really well. They were the highest converting pages.
Yep.
Another type of content that we always created was like a best category post. So for instance, I launched a blogging course when I was still working as a part-time, on my side. And what I did was I created a blog post called 21 best blogging courses, right? And I ranked that post, and that was getting traffic, and it was the main way I was selling my blogging course, right? So again, best time tracking software or best marketing automation software, those types of posts convert
Yep.
super well. Could
Yep.
be competitive, but they convert really well.
Yep. Yeah, lists like that.
Yeah.
So,
Lists that indicate that your buyer is looking, that somebody is looking to buy from you right now.
yep.
So
I,
not just any list. Yeah.
exactly. So you're at Time Doctor, you're working top of funnel content, you're working
Yep.
bottom of funnel content, and everything in between, of course.
Yep.
So, and in and on your site, Content Guppy, you've got a 5-step SEO process, which
Yeah.
maybe would be good. So, what are the 5 important steps to optimize your site for SEO? And number 1 you mentioned is keyword research. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So keyword research is finding, like I said, was saying before, finding key topics, blog post topics that are that have search volume. And so there's three criteria for a successful keyword. One is it's not overly competitive, especially if you're just starting out. Like if you're QuickBooks, then it doesn't matter. Or if you're writing on the Jeff Bullis blog, it doesn't matter because you guys, your domain authority is so high. But if you're just getting started, you're it's new to the segment or whatever, then finding a keyword that is pretty easy to rank, finding a keyword that has some search volume, and then third is finding a keyword that is relevant to your product or service. So if you get those 3 things correctly, then you've got a successful keyword. It's like a Venn diagram.
Okay. So those 3 again are
The 3 again are keyword difficulty, how hard it is to rank for the keyword. So how many like referring domain links do you need? What are your competitors, and who are the people you're competing with, and things like that. The second one is search volume. Like, does it have 0 searches, or does it have 1,000 searches, or is there somewhere in between, which most likely is? And then the third thing is relevancy to your business.
okay. So let's have a little chat up quickly amongst this one about. So obviously you don't want to try and rank for very highly competitive search terms that got like 500,000, 1 million. What's the sort of sweet spot you think people should aim for in terms of search volume that they should try and rank for so they got reasonable volumes?
Um, I typically don't, unless there's a super extenuating circumstance, I typically do not go below like 250 in terms of 250 searches per month in terms of search volume. So that's as low as, and like I said, unless there's a really extenuating circumstance, like your product category only gets 100 searches a month, I still want to rank for that, right? Because
Yep.
it's your product category. But in general, 250. And then for top of funnel stuff, like the stuff that is supposed to drive the main part of your traffic, I typically won't go below like 700 or 800 searches per month.
You won't go above.
Below.
Below. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
What's your top parameter?
I don't have a top parameter.
Okay.
It's my top. The reason why I wouldn't do it is because it's too difficult to search for something. It's too difficult to rank at that time.
Mm.
Like you have a brand new site and you're going to compete against the HubSpots, Backlinkos, and Single Grain and Neil Patels of the world, who are in the top 10, and they have 600 links to that piece of content each. And we're just getting started. We don't have any links. Like, that's going to be a really expensive piece of content to rank. And so we'll stay away from that for a while.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So number 2 is SERP analysis. And tell us
Yeah.
what SERP analysis means.
So,
SERP.
so SERP stands for the search engine results page. And that is basically just the first page in Google when you're querying something. So what you want to do in your SERP analysis is go through and see what is already ranking, so that way you can create something better. There's a saying in boxing that if you want to beat the champ, you have to knock them out. And it's the same thing in SEO. If you want to outrank somebody or replace somebody in the first page of Google, you have to create something that's better than what they have. Uh, that's because Google likes complacency, right? Like if once they find something that works, they want to stick with it for as long as they possibly can until it's proven that yours works better. So things that you might want to do is if you see a list post of 5 items, like 5 ways to increase traffic, maybe you want to do 17 ways to increase traffic and then make something really thorough and step by step. And or if there is some generic content, I don't know, I'll go back to the marketing space, how to grow your website traffic, right? Maybe you want to create something like how we went from 0 to 130,000 visitors per month. So, and then replace their generic topic with your story and make it super specific and actionable. And so make it very thorough.
Okay. So that's SERP analysis number 2.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. So yeah, the best part about SERP analysis is Google. So instead of like staring at a blank page, Google is going to tell you what to write. And
Right.
that's really kind of cool. So you never have to think about what it is that you're going to want to write about. The other part about SERP analysis, and we touched on it in the keyword research, is identify who your competitors are. How many links are you going to need to rank the content? How competitive is the space? Like if there are all social media posts, then that's great. You should you rank that blog post very easily. But if it's all like really well-funded, super big budget marketing teams, fighting for that space, then, again, maybe let's find something else and to rank instead.
Yeah.
So identify who your competitors are, about how many links you're going to need, and all that stuff in the SERP analysis.
Okay. So basically, you're doing an audit of your competitive landscape, and then work
Yep.
out what you need to do to win in
Yep,
that landscape.
Okay. Exactly.
Okay. So number 3 is content creation, and content creation has been it's an interesting area, and it's something that I focused on right from 2009 when I started the blog. And we built our domain authority, built what I call blunt force trauma of content creation. And I did that pretty well on my own for about 4 or 5 years when I wrote a piece of content every day.
Right.
When it wasn't as competitive. And I didn't do many analysis. I'm going to create content on topics that I think are interesting to me.
Yep.
And guess what? We built authority off that.
Yep.
So tell us about content creation and some of the things that you should be aware of, or our audience should be aware of.
So when you had started, because I started a blog my first blog was in 2008, and at the time 1,000 words was a very long blog post, and it was considered amazing, like that people were creating an 1,000-word post. And it would be something like 6 things to do something generic, or 6 ways to do something super generic. So content does not work like that anymore if you want to rank, especially in more competitive industries. So the key with content is creating, again, like I said in the SERP, you want to create something very thorough that answers this question that somebody has as specifically as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. That is really the key to it. The second thing that you want to do is put your own unique spin on the content as much as you possibly can. So if you have a personal story, or if your company has a personal has an inside story, or a secret sauce, or an ideology about how they do things, then you want to incorporate that into the content. The other thing you could do is identify your customers' pain points and incorporate that into the content. Those types of things really help you stand out from the thousands, millions, I guess, maybe. I don't know what the stat is now, millions of blog posts and content created every day.
Yeah. So content creation is art and science, as you just mentioned. So I know Russell Brunson, for example, was very much about tell a story, then make a point.
Yes.
So and that's his particular spin because it's his story. And I suppose we started doing that. Well, I started doing that a few years ago. Was okay. Here's the story. Because initially I don't think people cared about my story, but realised that storytelling is an important part of creating magical secret source content.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be your story either. It could be your, like I said, your customer story. It could be it could be like, hey, here's why we decided to solve this problem because we saw this pain by this group of people or whatever. Like it does not have to be a story, but your story has to be not in every piece, but it has to be interwoven in the content and what you do, what you as a company and organization do. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But
otherwise, and that's gonna we're gonna talk a little bit about this, I guess, maybe, but with all the AI tools, there's going to be no way to stand out other than your personal brand of storytelling.
Okay, now that raises a very interesting scenario. We are at the beginning of the AI revolution.
Yeah.
Which is making itself felt through every industry on the planet.
Yep.
From customer service through to basically getting your Facebook ads approved or Google ads approved. Because a person is not approving them. It's being done by a machine.
Right.
So what's... Now, I've had this discussion with Liam as well. I'm interested in your take on it. And so what is the role of AI today in creating content? And then number two, where do you think that's going?
So I've been seeing some... I think at the moment it's rudimentary, and we'll get into where I think, but I think it's going to get better. So I've seen some content created by some of these tools, and they're getting good, but it's still they're still not legible. It's still not fully legible content. It's still pretty terrible. But that doesn't mean like a year from now it's not going to be totally legible, really, or maybe 2 years, whatever the rate of the improvement is. It's not going to get not going to get much better. It will. It's going to get better. And so what I think is going to happen is this: a lot of companies are going to say, okay, this content is good enough for us to spend, I don't know, whatever, $200 a month on an AI tool or whatever it is, and crank out these blog posts that are like that are basically scraping Google or scraping the internet for research and putting it together and compiling it. And I think that there's going to be a lot of companies that do that. But I think that the companies that are going to succeed are going to be the ones that leverage those tools from a research standpoint and then infuse their stories and their personal way of going about things into the content, because a machine is never going to be able to sorry, I won't speak in absolutes because I don't know, I guess, but I can't imagine a machine at this point in time within the next 5 years taking your collective knowledge inside of the brains of your engineers, your salespeople, your marketing team, your customer service team, right? And then infusing that into the content as like a human can. And so that's where I think it is going. I think every company is going to have it as 90% of the companies are going to have it as this is good enough. Maybe not in 2 years, this won't happen, but at some point in time.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the 10% who are serious about ranking still in SEO are going to have a human element to infuse their secret sauce and everything like that.
So what you're saying, it's going to be a hybrid between man and machine.
I do, because a lot of the stuff that we write is research based. And so if I could get a machine to do that, then absolutely, right? That's just quicker and easier. But then, you still need a person to extract knowledge and put it down on paper.
Mm. Yeah,
So
interesting. Yeah, it's this AI and content creation is going to be, I think, a game changer, and I think people need to be aware of that. And the big end of town is going to have the resources to do it, and just how they do it's going to be the interesting thing to watch.
there are these tools. I don't want to say that they're not creating content, but the tools that have been around, like, so there's tools like Ahrefs, like ClearScope, that are optimization based tools where you literally where you can go in and ClearScope will say you still need to incorporate these 5 keywords or in these core concepts, right? So those tools have been around for a while, and SEOs have been doing that for the last couple of years.
Yep.
And so now what's going to happen is they're going to take those tools and automate that information anyway for you.
Yep.
But again, I still think in a sea of sameness, which is going to happen, every piece of content is going to be the exact same thing. The companies that are willing to go the extra mile and put and spend some time and resources in and making it unique, they're going to be the ones who are rewarded.
Okay. And that maybe leads to our fourth step in the SEO process, optimization. So, can you give us a thumbnail sketch of what optimizing involves?
Yeah, so it's basic. So optimization looks like what we were just sort of talking about, like the clear scopes of the world and the market muses, but it's basically kind of making sure that you touch on all the concepts that Google want you to touch upon in order to in order to rank. So, like I said, that sort of AI and intelligence has been there the whole time. It's not automated. A person still has to go in and incorporate those concepts. But yeah, that's basically what optimization means in a nutshell.
What are
And
the
then some
steps?
people are going to say, make sure that the keyword is in the headline, and make sure that the keyword is in the first paragraph, and make sure that the sub headlines have these keywords and all that stuff. So
And that's the
yeah,
core element of optimization. Then
and that's the
from
core element of optimization. Correct.
all
Yep.
right, cool. And number five, last step in the process is promotion and
Promotion and link
link
building.
building. Let's talk about promotion first and
Yeah.
what that entails.
So everybody. Okay. So how about instead everybody is going to post on social media and send it out to their email list. So is the more you have in terms of distribution in those senses, in that manner, especially email, you're ahead of the game. So, but the other thing that you want to do is find ways to get people to promote the content for you. So why would they do that? One, you've featured them, you've written a case study about them in the content, or two, you've linked to them for some way and for some reason, or and those are really like two amazing ways to get people to promote your stuff for you. The third way is incentivize them, right, with a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
So all three work really well in terms of a content promotion strategy. But I personally love to bake the promotion into the post. A quick story. So when I first got my blog started back in 2019, when I had zero traffic and maybe 50 email subscribers or whatever, I wanted to write a blog post about marketing funnels. And so what I did was, instead of just writing a simple post on, like, step 1 and step 2, step 3 on the marketing funnel, I found somebody with a very good and very well converting marketing funnel, and I emailed her and said, hey, could I break down your funnel for on a blog post? And she had a Facebook group of 5,000 people and an email list of another 10,000 people or whatever. And so I wrote this really in-depth 5,000 word blog post and sent it to her, and she's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. She shared it to her Facebook group, she shared it with her email list, and overnight I had a couple thousand readers and a couple hundred new email subscribers just from that one blog post, right? So I just featured somebody. And so anybody could do that just by finding a tool, a partner of some kind, and going through that. And yeah.
Yeah. And that leads us to the other part of step 5, which is link building. Now, link building
Yes.
has been at the core of search engine optimization since pretty well day one. In other words,
Yep.
Google uses domain authorities created by how many people are linking to your website or content, and then what is the authority of each of those. So tell us a bit about link building. Briefly.
Link building is hard.
It is.
The end. No, link building over time has gotten much more difficult.
It has.
Um, and this is going to be the single biggest challenge for the companies who stick with the AI tools and only use the AI tools. They are not going to be able to build links to them very easily. And so in order to acquire a link, acquiring a link is almost like customer outreach now from that standpoint. So you need something to have that's really great. You need to give that person a reason why they should link to you, whether it's like, hey, you're going to write a guest post on them, or maybe you're going to go and on a podcast and talk about your content, or you're going to give them an infographic or something like that. You're going to need that they could use to incorporate on their site, some reason for them to link to you. And after all that, you'll get a backlink, and then you have to do it a couple dozen to 100 more times, depending on how relevant your content or how difficult your content is,
Yeah.
and do that over and over again.
Yeah. It is a real challenge. I know that.
Yeah.
Luckily, I got my timing quite good. I was lucky because when I started the blog, there wasn't many bloggers on social media marketing, and in fact, there wasn't many blogs. And I think podcasting is a little bit of the same area at the moment, and that's becoming a tougher and tougher gig as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, building links. I think my aim was, well, people will link to me if I create the best possible content I can. And early on, it was, yes, you wrote 300 or 400 words back in 2008.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes only 200. It was fine. But then it became 1,000, it became 2,000, then it went to a whole new level. And just like you did, you wrote a 5,000 word post. That takes time.
It does.
Yeah.
I don't think you always need I don't think you need a 5,000 word post every time. That was just an example. But yeah, it's hard to acquire a link now, because everybody, like, I have a small blog. You have a much bigger site than me, and I get like 7 to 10 people who want to link to my site from my site. So I can't imagine how much more you get in terms of link building. I'll call it spam. It's exactly. I mean, just if you're in the audience, just think about that. Like, Jeff probably gets 100 to 200 emails a week on link. It's just people asking him for a link alone. How are you going to break through the noise?
Yeah.
It's a rhetorical question, because I don't know if I always have the answer, but
yeah, well, I got to a point where what we've done now is saying, well, we do no follow links now.
Yeah.
We don't do follow. Google has become pretty brutal on its the way it applies its algorithms on that sort of thing now. I think Forbes in the past has been no follow for a long time.
Forbes went to no follow, yeah,
early on, and so we're been no follow now for, I'd say, a year. But we still have domain authority, so if you create content with us, we still can get attention a lot. So, and we can rank within a few days, typically, for a lot of key phrases that will appear on page 1. So it really is a challenge, but I'm sort of saying to people, well, you want visibility, you need to pay us. It's really simple. In other words, it's what's known as sponsored guest posts, but you only get a no-follow link, and it's so we have monetized our authority in that sense without, basically paying people for a follow link. So, and I'm pretty sure that meets Google's rules now. But it's an interesting game, and
it, if somebody plays it, I don't know how many people play it well, but if somebody plays it well, that could like because of your site's domain authority, it's it could still be really profitable for that person.
Yep,
Like you don't even need that, like you don't need that link, you just that do follow link, just create something that is really well, that has the ability to rank and drive traffic, and then you're going to get that traffic siphoned over to your site.
that's right, and that's exactly how
Yeah.
it works now.
Yeah.
And so it's playing the game, but playing it
Yep.
in a different way to the way it was. And yeah, so because we're in the battle of the algorithms.
Yep.
Before we move on to that, is I'm just going to sum up the 5-step SEO process that Greg does. Number one, do keyword research. Do your search engine ranking page analysis, SERP. Number three, create the best content you possibly can. Optimize it so Google can find it easily enough
Mhm.
by putting the key phrases in the content and the website. Also, optimization can involve being fast, have a fast website, because Google's about experience as well. And number five is you need to promote and do link building, and that's the toughest gig in town because we now have, I think, over 1 billion blogs on the planet, and everyone's trying
Yeah.
to compete. So, but let's talk about the battle of the algorithms,
Yeah.
and we're all trying. Everyone's trying to guess what the latest update is to Google's algorithm, and so, what are your thoughts on that game? And um, some of the latest changes you think have been made to Google's algorithm?
So my thought is, it's funny, even though I'm in SEO, I hate it. I hate like trying to battle that. The only solace that I take is that they are trying to constantly rank the best content from the most from the most notorious brands, right? So if you have a brand equity and or you're building brand equity and you have great content, like you're going to rank at, and so I do take solace in that they are eliminating the gaming of the system. I think the thing that I when it comes to Google, the thing that is bothering me more are things like the featured snippets and taking credit for people's work
Yes.
without actually giving them credit, really. Like they're just scraping content from people's sites and not and just reducing the amount of links, the amount of clicks that go through it.
Yep.
So you're working harder to get the same results now that you
Yep.
used to.
Yeah, and that's the big challenge I
Yeah.
have one of the challenges I have with the algorithm that Google's got in place is the snippets. And guess
Yeah.
what? Yeah, they're basically stealing people's content, making as if it's their own, and to find out where it's from, you've got to dive into the snippet. And also,
Exactly.
it's not driving traffic to the website that's created. In other words, the creator is not being rewarded.
It, yeah, it does. Sometimes it
Can.
does drive some traffic, but but like there's a lot of instances in a lot of industries where it's not driving traffic at all. And so, especially in like uh, sites where like e-commerce sites got things like that, where if you're in this feature snippet of an e-commerce site and the product comes up or whatever, you just like, why click to a site? The other thing I don't like about it is like there's no accountability, right? There's like if the information's wrong or whatever, like it's just, oh, Google just stole this from my site or whatever, from some site, and even though it's wrong, it doesn't matter because what are you going to do? So
Yep.
that bothers me as well. So the accountability. And then the second thing that bothers me is with Google, again, even more than the algorithm, is before you used to be like the first ranking was above the fold, and in almost every search it was above the fold, right? So might have one ad, two ads, whatever, and then the first ranking would be third. So maybe 25% of the way down the full screen was the first ranking. Now the first ranking, you have to scroll down through 5 ads, 2 featured snippets, YouTube videos, and all this other stuff just to find the first ranking.
Yep.
So the first result. So they are taking, that's the other challenge as well.
Yeah. and that really bothers me because Google is essentially diminishing the creators and not giving them both either the
Exactly.
money, and I think this is where authority, governments and regulation need to be brought into the fold, and we've gone through that recently in Australia with going, but what's happening is that they're only going pay the big creators of news. What
Right.
happens to all the other small creators?
Exactly.
They get nothing. So it's almost like the big end of town wins again.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's where crypto started because of the 2008 financial crisis. Someone said this game sucks.
Rigged.
We need to
Yeah.
create a currency that is for the people rather than for the big end of town.
Yep.
Yep. So the gatekeepers, that's what excited me with social media back in 2008, 2009 was the gatekeepers were bypassed until they worked out how to stop you bypassing them again. And
Yeah.
the new gatekeeper became Zuckerberg and co. So
No,
it's really fascinating
like
and frustrating.
yeah. So SEO still works great. Like it
It
does.
does.
Like it's still just it's a still like I said when I left Time Doctor, we were getting 400,000 visitors a month just from Google. So it's not um terrible by any stretch, but it can't be your only play at all.
Yeah.
Just like Facebook ads can't be your only play or PPC can't, you need 3 to 4 different lead acquisition strategies,
Yeah.
for a mature company
Yeah.
at least.
Well, the thing, and for me, still Google still drives what over, I think it's 78% of our traffic.
Yeah.
And it used to be like Facebook and Twitter drove 30 or 40% of our traffic, and even higher.
Yeah.
I think Google gives more attention to organic content creators than the social media platforms do today. And I
Oh,
think,
absolutely.
and that is frustrating for me watching the evolution of the digital, media space that we're in now, is that social media has literally stripped almost any organic out.
Yeah.
Unless it's controversial or bad content, as in it's not good for the planet, it's not good for mental health of people, and we saw that with the polarization of ideas in politics
Yep.
over the years.
I was going to say politics gets a ton of play in social media, and I personally don't think that's a good thing.
No,
Yeah.
and there's been some discussion around the fact is
Yeah.
maybe political ads should be banned totally on social media, and I think that's maybe not a bad idea.
I don't think it's a bad idea, but I don't think it'll happen.
No.
I think there was one like in the United States, $400 million spent in the last election cycle on ads in the U.S. Facebook ads in the U.S. I believe
I
it
don't
was
know.
insane.
I wouldn't
It
mind
was
betting it's far higher than that, but it's big.
it could have been for whatever reason 400 million stands in my head, and there's no way
Mm,
that is getting banned.
yeah.
So
It's too much money,
it
and
really is, yes.
money
So,
talks, and sometimes we need to work out how we can make sure that the mental health of the world is a better
I, I
measurement of wealth than it really should be.
I gosh, I wish I could give credit where credit's due, but I saw this quote on Twitter today, and it was something along the lines of, "We let 20-year-old guys code the biggest and best pieces of software, and we wonder why things suck." And it was true. You think about it, like these 20-year-old kids are having such I mean they're a little older than 20 now, but when they were starting they were 20-year-old kids with the biggest influences, and we wonder why
Yeah.
our mental health is terrible.
Well, I remember as a lovely phrase, uh, basically text in the Bible called "Blessed are the meek." I think it's now changed to "Blessed is the geek."
Yes.
So the geeks will inherit the earth rather than the meek.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so it's really fascinating to look at what's unfolding in front of us. I think we've got to make sure that the big media players no longer continue to be unfettered. In other words, we're just distributors of the content. We don't own it. We have no
Yeah.
responsibility. And yet, gee, we make, $100 billion a year off this. So accountability, I think, has become more and more important. privacy and so on. But yeah,
Agreed.
it's the whole SEO game in terms of being discovered is still a great game to play and also a necessary game to
The
play.
the thing with SEO, again, I know there is still an algorithm, and it's going to, for the foreseeable future, is going to drive the most amount of traffic, but it's also the most unbiased game
Yep.
too. Uh, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're a one person, or I guess you have a team now, Jeff, but for a long time you were just a one person growing your blog, or if you're like me, a startup company, you could still rank content. It doesn't, as long as it's good enough.
Yep. I think certainly still that the search engine game,
Yeah.
ranking for is something that can be done by a one man band through to
Yep.
a big media company, and it's
Yep.
something that you can't ignore. You've got to play the game. You've got to be on top of it, and
Yep.
it's. I think it's actually much more democratic than social,
Yes.
and also benefits those that are what I call creators of great content. I think social media almost rewards those that create crap content, frankly. It's about superficial garbage
Yep.
rather than actually deep content that makes a difference to the planet. So,
Agree.
and I think it's time for social to reward the creators more organically. Google's certainly still doing that, which is great. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, just to finish up here, where's the future of SEO going, and any words of wisdom for those who are trying to be found online via search engines?
As far as the future, I'm terrible at predicting things like that. I wish I knew. Um, I still think I still think that the best, I think that for the very foreseeable future, the best content is going to be rewarded. I don't see that going on SEO. I don't see that going away anytime soon, especially with the influx of new AI tools and things like that. I actually think that that is going to be more emphasized in the future. And then what was the second question?
Second question
Oh,
was about
how to get found online. Do these three things every single day. Find keywords with search volume, create great content, and build links. Do those three things every single day, and you will get found online. I promise.
thanks, Greg. I think that's great advice, and something I've been doing for about the last 13 years or 12 years.
Yes,
And you will get rewarded, but you've got to play the long game.
you got to play the long game. Correct.
Great. So, how do we find you, Greg? At Content
Uh,
Guppy? What's the easiest way to contact you?
ContentGuppy.com. You can email me if you have any questions, Greg at ContentGuppy.com, or Twitter.com/Greg Digneo. Digneo.
Great. Thanks, Greg. It's been an absolute pleasure, and
Thank you so much, Jeff.
good luck on the journey of SEO.
Thank you.
And we are both not going to get bored because it's going to keep evolving. So,
And it will. Thank you.
okay.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye.